Space Cowboy Books presents Simultaneous Times, a science and speculative fiction podcast. Short stories to stir the imagination by contemporary authors.
At the Arenaceous Fringes of the Phantom Nebula by Jason P. Burnham, with music by TSG, read by Jean-Paul Garnier. Emal pulsed the ship's retro thrusters and verified zero velocity before grabbing his pack. He tried his best not to pay attention to the deep, dark blue all around his ship. If he thought about how far he was from any habited outpost, he knew he would panic. The ever-present smell of ozone in his suit didn't help him forget that he was in the middle of nowhere. Keeping his eyes low so that everything beyond the ship's viewports was at the periphery of his vision, he undid the fasteners of his pack. The insectoid Vimisarian engineer he'd bought the pack, and more importantly, its contents from, had assured him, truthfully thus far, the pack was vacuum-proof. He hoped the assertions about the other items were as accurate. The tiny starlights in the distance reminded him just how far out he was. Emal hoped he'd be gone before the electromagnetic storm that was headed his way arrived. And if he wasn't, well, then, at least his soul wouldn't have far to travel when it left him. He stuck his hand into the cool synthetic sack and pulled out a stippled, light green sphere. Turning it over, he didn't see how it was much different from any ordinary pebble outside of its color. But the Vimisarian had sworn it would allow him to breathe in vacuum if he were to become separated from his suit, as was wont to happen in the Phantom Nebula. He'd arrived at the perfect time. The souls of the interstellar dust wouldn't start appearing until the nebula's apsis to the galactic rotational axis. Emal hoped he could find his daughter, Kara, quickly before the vacuum became overcrowded with other souls. The Vimisarian had warned him not to go, but having seen Emal would not be dissuaded, acquiesced to the purchases, and told him he'd do best to find what he was looking for and leave the Phantom Nebula as quickly as he could. It's easy to become lost there, the Vimisarian had said. Emal could see why and hadn't yet gone outside the ship. Without the locator the engineer had gifted him, he'd not even have been able to tell which way the transit ring by which he'd arrived was. Below the ship, or at least below its current orientation, the first souls flitted about like deep space fireflies. Some glowed blue bright and sustained it. Others blinked in and out of existence almost faster than Emal could see them. It was time to get to work. Fumbling in the near dark, he located an oval-shaped silver locket. From the locket on his neck, he removed the strands of Kara's hair he'd carried with him and placed them into the one he'd purchased from the Vimisarian. When he closed it, he knew he'd done it correctly. The whole thing glowed a soft blue as the engineer had said it would. He tied the lambent blue locket tightly around his suited fist 3 times, thought better of it, and tied it a 4th. He didn't want to lose his only way to locate Kara among the other souls. An alert from his ship warned him of the coming electromagnetic storm. It was now or never. Under his suit, Emal popped the little green pebble into his mouth and moved it around with his tongue until it found a comfortable spot between teeth and cheek. Hands gripping the rim of the airlock tightly, he tentatively lowered the oxygen in his suit towards 0 to see if the stone worked as the Vimisarian had declared. When the oxygen hit a critical threshold, something shook the ship and sent him headfirst into the vacuum. He flailed and kicked and shouted, but he couldn't determine which direction was up. Only when the panic reached its climax did he suddenly realize something very important. He was breathing, despite not having a helmet anymore. The Vimissarin's wares were working. He laughed. An indicator light on his ship glowed. And that's up, he thought. Just as he moved to fire the suit's thruster toward the ship, a blue light flashed ahead of him, one with a familiar brown mop of hair. The Vimissarin had said his equipment would cause Kara to stand out from the other souls, to look more and more like she had in life the closer he got to her. "Kara!" he shouted. He nearly spit the green pebble out and caught it before it passed his lips. "Kara," he said again through closed teeth, the stone held tight against his cheek. The blue light with a brown mop of hair slowed and turned to him. For an instant, his heart stopped. When he saw her face, his heart resumed beating with a flourish, and he quickly engaged his thrusters. "Dad," she called, "what in heavens are you doing here?" I could ask the same of you, he thought, but didn't say. She had already been in a coma when he had arrived. He'd been too late to hear her say goodbye. The weight of missed goodbyes pressed against his eyes and tears formed and fell, instead of coalescing into a giant sphere. He was amazed by the things the engineer's little green pebble could do. When Kara came in close, the light within her shifted, and the blue faded to pink as she wrapped Emal in an enormous hug. It was as if she was corporeal. He could feel the squeeze, the warmth. Tears continued to fall. Emal choked on his unsaid apology, on all the guilt. It wasn't his fault an occult aneurysm in her brain had ruptured. It was nobody's. But there was nobody to blame but himself for working too much to spend as much time with her as he could have. He cleared his throat. "I just wanted to see you again." Seeing her, embracing her, were more than he could have asked for. He'd have to go back and thank the Vimissarin. Kara smiled. "Here I am." She twirled in the vacuum, not disturbing the interstellar dust encircling them. Emal hadn't noticed the particulates. He'd been preoccupied by the fear of suffocating and the appearance of his dead daughter. Emal grinned so widely he had to put his hand to his cheek to keep the stone in place. "By the gods, how I've missed you, honey." Kara rested a hand on his shoulder. "I've missed you too, Dad." A serious look flashed across her face. "But you really mustn't stay." The engineer's words echoed in his mind. It's easy to become lost there. He shook his head. "I've only just arrived. Let's have a little bit more time, please," he begged. "You went so suddenly. It was like my whole foundation was pulled from under me, and I've just been slowly crashing ever since." Kara hugged him tightly again, and Emal closed his eyes, trying to soak up every second and imprint it into his heart. "I love you, Dad, but you can't stay. The storm is coming and you need to get back to your ship. You have to keep living. I give you permission." When he opened his eyes, Kara was gone, and his view was obscured by coalescing particulates. He swatted at them frantically, trying to find Kara, but in the process, the locket with Kara's hair went spinning through the vacuum. As it did, He thought he saw a mop of brown hair flash along the trajectory of the locket. "No!" He screamed so loudly the little green pebble flew out of his mouth. Suddenly, he was asphyxiating, the liquid on his tongue boiling away into space. The particulates grew turbulent, and he could scarcely recognize his hands in front of his face. He panicked, wanting to search for Kara, but also for the impending breath of a noxious vacuum his lungs were going to force him to inhale. He followed the indicator beacon of his ship, particulates troubling him at every firing of his thrusters. A cosmic ray shot through his eye, flashing as it went and disorienting him. His vision tunneled, and outside the tunnel's walls, buzzy hallucinations danced. Kara's first steps, her 6th birthday with cake in her hair, her limp body in the hospital bed, her soul holding a locket. His vision grew dark, and something jerked him toward the ship's airlock. As sound returned with the airlock's closure, he gulped air in mouthfuls, his chest heaving with every motion. When he finally caught his breath, he realized his hands were gripping the airlock's exit ladder and pulled himself in. The ship was angry, klaxons firing, red lights flashing, alerting him of the imminent electromagnetic storm. His skin was already beginning to swell where it had been exposed to vacuum, and his tongue burned. He looked out the viewport, hoping desperately to see lights from within the nebula, hoping he'd see Kara again, but there was nothing. The nebula was darker than the distant stars. Emal strapped himself to the pilot's chair, but was too exhausted to initiate the drive. He grabbed the locket from around his neck out of habit, and when he realized it no longer held Kara's hair, he sobbed and sobbed until he passed out. When he awoke, it was to the rhythmic flashing of the lights of the docking bay and the sound of mechs unloading cargo. He held his hand up to shield his eyes and became aware of the foul, metallic taste in his mouth. He sat up and spat over the side of the mag cart on which he lay. A cleaning android whistled angrily at him and quickly scrubbed the area. To his surprise, the Vimasaran engineer was sitting on a nearby stack of crates, long antennae bobbing and forearms clicking together. There was gray amalgam under his 6 black eyes, and Emal wondered if he'd sat all cycle watching over him. "Did you find what you were looking for?" the insectoid alien asked in a deep, gravelly voice. Emal nodded, remembering the joy he'd felt when he saw Kara's smiling face. "Good," the engineer said, propping himself up from the crates with a long, metal assistive device. He turned toward the docking bay exit and began to shuffle away. Emal spat again and cleared his throat. "Do you have any more of those green stones?" he asked wistfully, but without much hope. He would do anything to see her again. Maybe next time he could actually apologize. The engineer turned and shook his head, a very humanoid gesture. "That's a feat that can be done only once. The device's functionality is tied to epigenetic changes in your DNA. If you did it again, there'd be catastrophic, irreparable damage. I'm afraid you'll have to live with what you got." Emal sighed. "Thank you," he said, then had a sudden thought. "How did you find me? And why?" He motioned to the station with his hand. I saw the look in your eyes when I sold it to you. I embedded a tracker just in case you did something reckless. I had a hunch. You're not the only one who's lost somebody, the Vimisaren said. A glint of sadness touched the old engineer's eyes. Emal bowed his head and put it into his hands, attempting to collect himself. How did you? He asked, but when he looked up, the Vimisaren was gone. Emal rubbed a hand across his face, the beard of weeks in space run rampant. As he dropped his hand, it went to a familiar place, the locket around his neck. A sheen of tears formed across his eyes, the memory of the loss of Kara's hair to the vacuum, painful anew. He opened the locket, and a shock of brown hair dropped out. Emal's jaw fell, and he fumbled forward, snatching it up before it got lost among the docking bay's detritus. Had it not been a hallucination after all? Live with what I've got, he said, echoing the engineer's assertion. He thought back to the depths of space, to Kara, her smiling face out there, her smiling face from before, and all the times they'd shared together. Her birth, her first steps, her first words, and all the other firsts that had brought him joy over the years. Then he thought of all the lasts, the ones that saddened him, but made him realize she had grown up, that he had done his job well. The last time she'd taken a nap, the last time she'd wanted him to cuddle with her before she fell asleep at night, the last time they'd eaten dinner together. And now he had one more last to add. The last time he'd seen her smiling face, there, deep in the Phantom Nebula, among the Arenaceous souls. He closed the locket and smiled. It was a good last to have. It was going to be hard. It was going to feel so much emptier without her. But the first and last would always be there, in his heart. And nobody could take that away from him. Open Jaw by Eliane Boey, with music by Fog Machine, read by Jean-Paul Garnier. The man in the overalls did not take his eyes off me as he ran down the service stairs from the mezzanine of the Shung to the lobby. I blinked to settle the tab and slid off the bar stool. He skipped off the last step, veering to the left to place himself between me and the way out. The Shung had been the last hotel on the list. Certainly the grandest on Heilong Station by my measure, even though I had never been anything of a hotel connoisseur until this last cycle. Had never been anyone else but myself. I was at the end. I knew that much, and yet I still didn't know her. But maybe she was never the question. When JX called, offering the ticket to a new life, I was at the mess, tearing open a tub of So Puffs, careful not to split the package so it would stand. What if you could go to Heilong Station today? I'm benched with nothing but time until next cycle. I tapped twice on the So Milk dispenser. An animated roach popped up on my dash, telling me to top up my wallet. I found a B Premium Open Jaw so old The holders passed on, and no one's closed the account. You could go, sniff around the station, actually join a job auction live. Why would anyone from Heilong have an open ticket to the armpit of the Straits? I tapped once on the soy milk dispenser. Nothing happened. I didn't think I was so low I couldn't afford one pump of what I can definitely believe is not milk. JX flapped on about the station of opportunity until I straight up asked them what they wanted. There's a Beltmax hauler in your lineup, the Even Cruiser. She's scheduled to berth after the cycle end to load for Red Unicorn's pile on White Rock. And you need her loaded yesterday. I added 2 tablespoons of soy nut butter sauce from the chiller, seeing as it belonged to someone else. Got a touring permit with that? The full ride for 1 cycle. I can even throw in some spending coin. Mei Wong. The smooth digital intonation of the flight steward woke me. Sorry? There had been no need to respond, of course, let alone apologize to the bot. But I'd never flown anything above standing class. Your pre-ordered meal will be delivered at GBT 0400. Please buzz if you require anything. The steward rolled along, and my dash pinged with a notification that my ticket had been verified. I blinked to pull up comms myself and start a message to JX. My roach assistant hadn't shown its artificially intelligent feelers at all during the flight. You left the name on the ticket. I'm traveling as the old lady. I was not Mei Wong, whoever she was, and I wasn't going to travel as her. What was the point of finally going to Heilong after cycles of dreaming and not be myself? I nestled back into the full reclining berth. The refreshments cubby beside me was stocked with chilled juice drinks, coffee, and energy shots, as well as a flip box of meal powders in the full flavor range, from prawn laksa to beef consommé. Not just chicken or vegetable as we had at the mess. The chiller showed signs of use, but the sachets of flavored protein dust were neatly lined up with smooth sides and sharp edges. Anyone who could afford to fly premium B class would not have to touch that box. What was the point of being myself? I closed the window, message unsent. There was so much choice on Heilong Station, streets of shops and the prefab 2x2s that on Bukhan are left unpainted and used as sight sheds, that I ducked into a Zalmart and bought a frozen Phan Thuan. Mining station life puts you on a calendar of high-yield shift, storm season sit-outs, and sleeping around the queues at port. Heilong Quay, in contrast, was not only busier at midday, but teeming with folk enough to people watch and places to spend coin at. I sat on a bench near the stackers and ate my reheated Phan Thuan while smelling roasting protein and fat around me. And I began a message. Dear Yin, delete. Hi Yin, delete. Hi Yin, Heilong is amazing. As though invoked, the message began flashing. I blinked to ignore. Writing Yin meant I was ready to communicate. Talking was something else entirely. The message cleared. My dash, usually pinned with pinging inboxes, live port schedules, and next shift reminders, looked alarmingly empty. And where was my roach? I eyed over the profile tab. Bottom right. Select. Mei Wong. I was still her. The photo ID showed a woman who was in her 50s at most. Not so old after all. Hell, I was closer to 50 than to 20. May's schedule hadn't been synced for cycles, which would be consistent with being dead. I typed he, going for help, and autocomplete returned Hei Long Da, along with a last saved appointment draft. It was my first day at Hei Long, and no better time to stop being Mei Wong. But first, I had to look enough like her. I swallowed a sachet of Hey Me flavored dust swiped from the shuttle and balanced the cheap cosmetics from the vending machine of the pod motel as I drew lines on my face in front of the only mirror on the floor. As part of the deal, JX had transferred coin enough they reckoned would put me up for a week. Between JX's taste and my low standards, I had enough to stay at least 3 cycles at the pod motel above the wharf. Mei Wong and I looked nothing like one another. A filter or a scramble mask would do a better job, but leave me with explaining to do. I still didn't know why she had planned to visit the academy, but wealthy settlers must surely donate coin to schools and quasi-public establishments for favors and tax evasion, as they had on Earth. I could at least look forward to a dull presentation on the academy's funding needs, followed by a free lunch. And then I'd tell them about the mistake, own up to being an L1 mining and filtration tech, and, now safely through the door, ask about a job I actually qualified for. The bullet tram line running from the wharf would have taken me to Hei Long Da in 4 minutes, but I walked. Possibly to ready myself to be Mei Wong. Not at all to enjoy the last moments being her. I got there with time to spare and paced the dark wood veneered halls of the academy, trying to be invisible. This was a bad idea. A woman stepped into the hall, not mid-stride like she'd been walking from her desk, but in a quick burst, as though she'd been waiting by the door. I hadn't expected the smile. "I won't take up too much of your time." I straightened my back and tried to be a convincing donor. "Just came to see what the best education in the belt looks like." "No, not at all. Yang's normally the one who does these, but he's off station this week." She cleared her throat. I remembered myself and authorized the transfer of my ID packet, and she squinted at her projection. "I understand you're considering a program here." I laughed. My cheeks might have colored. "I wouldn't dream. I mean, I would. I once did, before practicality interfered and my own mediocrity made sure it stayed buried. And now, I'm here about the job in maintenance." "You submitted a partly completed application to history, not the academy proper. I suppose you're aware that since its removal from the critical skills set and the visa basket, all courses offered under history are now something of elevated," she snapped her fingers, "reading groups, hence the rolling applications." I submitted, and then I caught the threads and tied them. "I apologize. I thought I was saving it for later." She smiled again. "Well, you're here now. I expect you'll be staying on campus unless you've made your own arrangements, May." Why would a rich settler die with her profile unclosed and a partly completed matriculation? I asked JX. Maybe someone's waiting for news of her. Maybe the system glitched and skipped deleting her folder. It happens. Look, this ticket was a present for you from the universe. Like a wallet found in the street with no ID and no way to return it. In the old days, that is. My dash buzzed and I ignored it. Good things don't happen to me. The belt wrings me out and throws me back in for the next shit job that will take what's left. And this ticket came with ID, which you continue using. I only kept it because you left it in there. My dash buzzed again. You're obsessed with the old lady. I'm not obsessed, and before you say that's exactly what an obsessed person would claim, I turned on my bed and hit my elbow on the side of the pod and swore. You're in Heilong, and my ship is underway to White Rock. We got what we needed, so drop the class, JX said, their voice echoing through the speaker as they did whatever else occupied more of their attention. I massaged my elbow. The program comes with accommodation. JX sucked breath. You're still doing it. You're still May. On my 6th day on Heilong, which should have been my last full day, I was exhausted. With the help of a teen off Zehu Square Alley with a dash rerouter and the ability to forget what they dug up, so long as they were paid, I found 2 more leads from May's dash. It was all in fragments of timestamps, like trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle with no guiding picture and a third of the pieces. But it showed she'd been through the Banyan, the Shang Club, Man, and a few other equally posh establishments, and stayed at each for multiple cycles. I think it had been as long as 3 years at Shang. I saved that for last. Each morning I took the tram to one of the named locations. At first, I slipped, invisible in my tech uniform, to steal a fair suit from the changing room. And then the rest of the day would be spent lounging by the bar, spotting regulars by the way they ordered early in the day and sat slumped over their drinks with no one to impress. You'd think someone would have remembered her. Resort gadfly like May. The air in the blushing peony was perfumed with sandalwood and jasmine, and the walls were draped in undyed silk hangings. No one at the bar or at the lounge of the spa knew her. A man about my age looked up as I stepped out of the spa and fixed me with a hard stare. He was in overalls, with his hands on a large gray panel that I supposed controlled the heat and moisture in the baths. His supervisor demanded his attention, and I walked on. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I gave it 20 minutes and tried to finish my in-dash experience of walking a rainforest trail through densely packed Agsana and Chengal. But I couldn't feel the dew, and the smell of damp leaves was gone. Cycle's nearly over. When are you back? I could have swiped it away, but I typed a response instead. Yin would have stopped. As soon as I can afford to. JX says you're stalking a dead old lady in Heilong. You care more about some stranger you never met than your family. I logged off my dash and blinked as the bar refocused around me. Me, a stalker. It was laughable. I sipped the free tea, real Da Hong Pao, crunched fried lotus seeds, and ordered another Baiju shooter on JX's coin. All it takes to get a free posh meal and a day swanning about a Tier 1 station is dressing the part. My feet were heavy as I got off the bar stool at the Shang and ambled with calm I did not feel through the lobby. I had recognized the man in overalls as the tech outside the spa of the Blushing Peony. He'd glared at me. Perhaps he saw me take the suit. I should have seen him earlier, but I couldn't take my eyes off all the verdant tropical leaves bursting out of every interior balcony in the Shang. The obscene luxury of it only reminded me that I had failed. Asking around the bar, experience lounge, gym, and spa had yielded no results. I was running low on JX's coin, and if I wanted to keep looking, I'd have to take a job on station. Not before returning to Bukan to quit the job I already had. I was at the rotating doors, preparing for the rush of warm air from the street beyond when he stopped me. His face was red, and not entirely from exertion. He said, "I don't know why you've been asking after my mother, but this has to stop." Time skipped. "Your mother? Unless you're a former employer and owe us coin for keeping her on the payroll, there has to be a reason why her profile's still running. Stars knows she worked hard." "You're Mei Wang's son? What's it to you? I only wanted to know her and to thank her." Even then, I couldn't be sure it was the truth. He curled his lip. "You're a misery touring sparkler. You might have thanked her when she cleaned up after you." "No, I'm an L1 tech like you." But I looked down and remembered that I was wearing new clothes to look the part. The part I thought was Mei Wang. Was that how the coin ran low so fast when I thought I had enough for cycles? The look of disgust on his face had curdled into dismay. Buy an experience, take an alley tour. Just stay away from my mother's memory. It's gone on long enough. JX, how many times have I shuffled the lineup for you? Yin keeps pinging me. I still have access. I can swap your ships to the back of the queue. Damn it, all right. They're keeping you for long if you don't tap in. You have to let go of that old lady. Mei Wang, you were here on Bukum with me. Another faceless figure at the mess hall of the Greyfield. I never knew you then. Never knew you saved for the ticket to Heilong. But you never did run away from the circus. Was it fear, May? No one will ever say that of you now. In this episode of Simultaneous Times, you heard At the Arenaceous Fringes of the Phantom Nebula by Jason P. Burnham, with music by TSG, and Open Jaw by Eliane Boey, with music by Fog Machine. Theme music by Dane Lesko. Be sure to visit us at our bookstore in Joshua Tree, California, or visit us online at spacecowboybooks.com.